we're going to jump right into designing for different player types and needs. I am going to present you with kind of two different ways of thinking about players that can be applied to board and card games or digital games too, video games as well, and then also some player needs that you want to be cognizant of. I'm sure you probably have some thoughts, ideas on this as well, ways you reach it, and so there will be some opportunities for you to share how you kind of cater to different player types as well as you're doing design. I'll also just give a little bit about me. If anybody was in the 9 o'clock kind of innovative marketing, there will be like the exact same, sorry. So I was a high school English teacher. Now I coordinate the instructional tech at UW-Whitewater in Wisconsin, and I teach a course there called Video Games and Learning, and a course in digital tools, teaching an intro to education class, which is quite an awful lot to talk about in 15 weeks. I don't know, it's just my opinion. And then I'm releasing my first commercial game. It's called Game Stormers. You know what's really crazy is I was just out like 10 minutes before this, and my manufacturer sent me the mass production proof, and I said yes, and it is like going into final production. So I will tell you, like, December 2019 is when I had the idea for this game, and you don't think it's ever going to be to this day, and so I told myself I wouldn't cry, and I'm not gonna, but maybe I will later. But it's really neat. But I will just tell you, I was as far away from a game designer publisher as you can be 3 years ago, and just, you know, if I can tell you anything, if you're still deciding if this is for you, it's such a great experience, and I'd be happy to tell you everything not to do. I've discovered a lot of those. Along the way, I bumped into a few things to do, and this session is one of the, like, I've learned to try to appeal to different player types and lean into those player types. So that's my advice. And then also, I mentioned this in the first session, I don't love free time, so I'm also working on my doctorate in ed tech, and it's in collaborative virtual reality as well. So working in VR and creating in VR. No, I don't make board and card games in VR, and I probably wouldn't play one in VR, if I'm being honest. Maybe someday I would, but not in today's VR. I don't know, just my 2 cents. So that's me. My company is GameStorm.edu. Fun fact I shared in the last session, I launched the company the day my daughter was born, so she's 1.5 years old, and I mentioned in the first session that's a great way to keep track of how old your company is just, you know, align it with your daughter's birthday, or a marriage, or, you know, a pet's birthday, or pickup day, or whatever it might be. And I also do speaking, consulting, mainly with districts, because I'm kind of more of an education and family board game kind of aim with my company, so I do consult with them in that approach. What is Game Stormers, to just give you a sense? And I told this as well in the first session. You might be wondering, why are you telling me about your board game? I just want to hear about your marketing and your player type strategies. It's because my examples will be rooted a little bit in how this particular game aligns with those player types, so I want you to have some context. And so it's not like really abstract how that aligns. So this is a creative tableau building game. So you have your little player notebook, and you're building a 5-card game narrative during the course of the game. You can either win by pitching your great game idea and being the player's choice, getting the most votes, or you could score the most points with your game idea. So as you build out your game, it scores you points for meeting objectives, being really unified in its theme, exploring different multiverses and mixing and matching the multiverses, all that good stuff. So there's kind of that strategic or that creative angle to it. I'm trying to straddle that line. I'll let you be the judge after you buy a copy of whether I pulled it off. Just kidding, no pressure. But you can get them at GameStormEdu.com, just in. So that's a little bit about it. It also has 139 unique card artwork to it. So the game is very much meant to inspire you through both the visuals, the card names, and the gameplay as well. So that's just a little bit about the game. So you kind of have that context as I talk about these examples. I'll also use contemporary games as an example of how they kind of try to meet these different game types too. And I'm sure you have plenty of examples that align with it. So the first one I'm going to talk a little bit about is I'm going to talk about the 4 player types, and this is kind of the IPOT model. This is not the creator of it, but it's just where I heard of this IPOT model. This was from Ian Zhang of Gravitation Games, and I heard it on the Board Game Design Lab contest. And so I'll talk a little bit about IPOT. That last P can also be a T. I'll explain that a little bit. So it could be IPOT, but I don't want people to think it's like a new Apple product that gets you high or anything. So I'm just going to call it IPOP for this last one. You'll kind of see what that P or that T could be. But I think IPOP works a little bit better. So the first type of player And one thing to think about too is I don't have the second one has actually a test aligned to it. This one doesn't have a test. I think it's more of a think about what you take away from games and what maybe you see people taking away from games. The first type of person is an idea person. And so just to give you a little overview of this type of player, they love the details on the cards. They love the intricacies. And it could be two different things about the cards. It could be that they love how the card interplays and works within the game system, but they also might just love the information, the flavor text of the card. They might just really also love the world that's kind of being built out of the card, right? I think of some examples of this in action. I'm just going to start actually here. I'm going to skip ahead one. Any Magic the Gathering players out here? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you usually see a good contingent at design, and you can definitely see some inspiration from when I show you some Game Stormer cards. But Magic the Gathering has not only card abilities but also the flavor text. So you get quotes from the world, you get these moments, you get these moments of humor, these moments. You also get those, how does this work and how can I leverage this card in the bigger gameplay is really powerful. Idea players typically love this. Oh, we're back, okay. Stick with me, HDMI. In Game Stormers, we also have kind of card abilities and combos. And when I am teaching Game Stormers to somebody, I have some players who are just gravitated to how can I make these cards work together to optimize to have the greatest game designed. I could give a crap about telling you about my game, but my game is going to be a massive success in the points category. And that's totally fine. They're obsessed with the ideas of how those cards interplay, right? So that's what the idea players kind of really connect with. This shouldn't come to any surprise to any of you. There are people players. So there are people who love the fact that the game is really just an excuse to interact with people in unique ways. Either the game makes them funnier, or the game allows them to backstab their partner, or their former partner if things go really poorly, during the course of the game. So this game allows them to have those discussions, collaborations, and the game enables them to, interact in new and interesting ways. I will say I'm one of the people who loves these types of games because I love I love to laugh until I cry during a game. I love to be deciding if I can trust a person or not during a game. We were just talking at lunch, what's our favorite game? And I mentioned one of my favorite games is Dead of Winter because there's this sense of, can I trust you? Are we working towards the same goal? Is your secret goal getting in the way of our group goal? Is one of you secretly just trying to kill us all? I don't know, but I'm just kind of digging for information. Okay, you said you don't have that card, but do you really have that card and you're saving that card? But should I kind of call you out for maybe holding on to it? There's all of that, and I love it. I love every second of it. And I love kind of needling my wife until she breaks down and just announces out loud that she's the betrayer. So that's kind of how the first 5 minutes of that game goes. It's me just are you? Are you though? Are you? And then usually I can get her to crack. But so anyways, love those types of games. You probably know people like that, or you are one yourself, right? So in Game Stormers, this game is all about sharing game designs, voting, free plug for my daughter Sloan right there, and pitching concepts. So it's very much you are trying to sell your idea to other people, right? That's a big part of the game. Definitely inspired by other games like that. If you've ever played Snake Oil, where you're trying to sell a crummy product to someone, or Silicon Valley Startups, where you're trying to pitch your ridiculous Silicon Valley company to somebody else. It's in that same vein of, I'm trying to pitch you on something that I don't know myself if I believe is very good, right? A game that is also for people players, obviously social deduction games, but this is a big favorite of ours in the education world, which seems really odd because it's called Two Rooms and a Boom, and usually bombs and schools don't go well together. But I have not gotten fired for using this game. So if you haven't played, anybody played Two Rooms and a Boom by chance? Yeah, so what's great about this game is it's for, I'm not kidding, 6 to 30 plus players. And there's, the goal is for the red team to get the president and the bomb in one room. The goal of the blue team is to keep the president and the bomb in separate rooms by the end of the game. So it's going to go boom, have it in the right room for your team, right? You talk to people, you can find out their allegiances. You're kind of maneuvering the rooms to try to exchange hostages to make sure it ends up that way. What's great about this is players have their limited information. They gain new information. Do I trust you with the information? And there's that interplay that happens. People's abilities come into play, how I can use my ability to gain more information. So Two Rooms and a Boom is great. If you need to do a team building or a team destruction activity, this is a really great way to do that as well. So Two Rooms and a Boom is kind of an interesting people player example. If you get nothing else out of this presentation, maybe you'll get some just ridiculous game ideas to use, next big corporate gathering, right? So there's that. The next group of players are called object players. And these players really, really deep dive into that visual aspect of the game. So they're the folks who really are maybe taken in by the visuals of the game. They might be people who really are actually driven by the graphics and how things are graphically represented. And we probably want to think about these folks and the idea folks of what balance we need to have when we're thinking about the iconography of our game, when we're thinking about the language of our game. Where is our target audience and how are we appealing and making it accessible to the idea folks, the object folks too? So keep that in mind as you're kind of rolling. But they are going to be those ones who are driven by a good visual. And they're probably the folks who aren't going to buy your game or back your game if it doesn't jump off the shelf too, right? You probably have to have some really good effort on that initial visual because that is something that could make or break for the object folks. So that's just something to be aware of. Might not be a deal breaker, but it might not get you in the door as easily. So in Game Stormers, we definitely believe that the graphics needed to be inspiration because we knew there were people who aren't the idea people, where if I cover up the Release the Kraken, maybe the idea people would love the Release the Kraken name. Maybe they love its power, right? Maybe they can visualize the Kraken just by thinking about how they'd make that work in their idea mind. But the object people don't give a crap about a Kraken. Don't give a crack about a Kraken? I don't know, whatever you want to say. But as soon as they see the visual, they go, oh, I can envision how this would get in the way of my protagonist in my game. All they need to see, though, were those 5 layers of mouth, and then that's what actually triggers it. So that's kind of where they get jumped in on this. There's tons of games that do this great. One thing just to mention, we're wondering why, a very simple game like Exploding Kittens did so well. It wasn't that the graphics were incredible, it's that all of the graphics work so well with kind of the tone and the approach that game had. So it wasn't that they were doing anything different, it's just that oatmeal style just worked so well. And I don't know if anybody's listened to kind of the backstory for that game, but it was really interesting. The artist just happened to bump into this designer at kind of a group event together, and they were kind of talking about their passions. He's like, I've been looking for a game for my comic to be in, and holy crap, your game about this bomb thing would be great. What do you think about cats? And he's like, what? No, it's Bomb Detonation Gate, and this doesn't work. And he's like, hear me out. And the rest is history. It worked out, right? So that was one where they just committed to this visual, and the visual works so well for the tone of that game, right? So that's the thing too. I mean, we spent a lot of time perfecting a look to Game Stormers and a detailed look, but it doesn't have to be that. It just has to really fit for what your purpose is, and object people are drawn to that. It doesn't have to be a detailed, beautiful visual, but the visual has to just work thematically, and that's what they care about. So this was the IPOP or IPOT, depending on who you are. These are the physical, tactical people. Tactile, sorry, tactical and tactile are two very different things. Tactile people, so they love that sensation of the pieces, right? There's something about the presence of the pieces. There's something about the feel. There's something about having those. There's something about the interactivity of the pieces, right? These are the people who might love the print and play world. They might love that aspect of printing everything out, putting it together, deciding how they would put it together better than how the creator did it. I'm hoping my print and play folks do that for me, right? Yeah. How should I make it next time? What would be a better way, right? But they love that interactivity. They love those games that maybe invite a component of creating and drawing. So one thing that we do have in this game, I'm going to talk about in just a second, but we actually have dice and dry erase cards. And one thing you can do is you can actually make a card. If you're not finding the right card for the game, you can roll the dice, use an image to create a card to put in your game if you don't find the one that really fits what you're going for. And we're appealing to those tactile physical folks with that, right? So that's one of our angles. My apologies for the really rudimentary dice graphics. I didn't actually take a picture of my dice, but I did find the cube shape on Google Slides and put it in there for you. So yeah, just went that extra mile for everybody. So that's kind of one example of what that looks like in action. So that's how we did it, is giving people that tactile, I could make the card. And I'll tell you what, my mom playing the game is not going to make a card. She's very self-conscious about her art, but I'll tell you what, the 9-year-old who plays the game, half of her game was drawn and half of it was cards, and she mixed those two worlds. She loved it, right? So it's not for everybody, but we're filling that tactile person's desire with it. A really clever game that does this is Forbidden Sky. Anybody ever played Forbidden Sky? Kind of crazy. It's in that forbidden everything world, right? Forbidden desert, forbidden island kind of world. But this one actually involves you making connections. They're magnetic connections with these pieces, and it actually lights up to help launch your rocket ship. You have to make the connections in order to launch your rocket ship on this kind of futuristic, like, sky world, right? And so that is an incredible, like, I will just sit there, and what's great is, like, you have to figure out with the pieces, you literally have to lay them out to see if it'll work. Like, there's no, like, this one's 4 pieces long or 4 spaces long. It's like, will this one go and span that? You have to find out by physically trying it out. So it's an incredible tactile experience. And then also, can you beat, like, just a giant steampunky rocket ship in your game? Like, people will just, I'm 34 and I will fly that thing around, right? I don't care, no shame here. So that is something that, is going to be an appeal. If you have those tactile objects that give somebody a unique experience, or maybe turn on the head something that they've been using tactile before. So I wanted to give you this quick overview, and then I am going to kind of just give you a chance to give your thoughts too on these topics to see if you have kind of any connections to them. So we got the idea players interested in that information about the game world. We got the people players, straightforward, interacting. We got object players, drawn to the visuals, and we got tactile players, who are kind of into that physical items and touch. So I did want to turn it over and give you a chance here. I'm going to switch up my question, if I can. Oh no, Wi-Fi. Did I lose my Wi-Fi? I'm going to go with the free service. Did I chime out?
It drops every so often because there's
okay, while I get connected with that, oh, apparently there is Madison on Tap just launched, everybody. Oh, did I not? I think I accepted, yeah. I'm just going to go to my home here. I'm going to go back to Proto Spiel. Let's see how fast I can do it. This is a new record. Oh, look at that. That actually went better than I thought it would. Okay, so I will put this up. A chance for all of you to kind of put thoughts in here, and you can do the old-fashioned if you want to. So we've got the polev.com. Is that really small? I can make that bigger. Here, I'll cheat. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to put it up. Boom. Okay. So here's my question for you on that polev. You're working on a game design, let's say, or maybe you connect with some games that you already played. How do you see your game design excelling in maybe 2 or 3 of those areas? How does your game go about excelling in that people interaction? How do you see it excelling in the object? How do you see it excelling in the idea? How do you see it excelling in the tactile? How does it go about achieving that angle? I think it's good. We could all talk about areas that could be improved, but where do you see your game really connecting? Because if we see other success stories, I think that gives us ideas of where maybe we could fill in some gaps for our game, how games take advantage of that. One thing I want to caution you against is you probably don't want to say to yourself, my game has to excel in all of these. That's okay if it doesn't. And I would argue there are areas of this that my game does better than others, definitely. But we try to appeal to those different player types. And we're also going to talk about another 4 player types as well as we're going through. Oh, it's not open? Okay. Activate. All right, how about now? Whew, thank you. I appreciate your persistence. I'll go back to this. Now, I also want to say too, low tech and no tech submissions accepted with one of these. So just if you have thoughts on this that you want to share and you don't have a device handy, or it's mid-afternoon and you're deviced out or what have you, you can also raise your hand. So I'll give people a chance to put in, and also you can submit it there and also share it aloud. That is also acceptable. So any ways that you see connecting to one of these, 2 of these, I put 2 or 3, but if you just want to do 1, that's okay as well. I'm going to switch over to that view. I like it. We got some group spell check happening here. That's great. So this just sounds very satisfying right here, physically building polyominoes with 3D cubes. I can just already, I'm actually feeling the 3D cubes right now. This is me playing whoever's game that you submitted that. So I can just tell that. And there is just something, I talked about the VR not being a big fan of the board game and VR worlds for me overlapping, and I think it's because of some of these things. Chunky chips, and yeah, the art. And again, keep in mind too, if you know that you don't have an art budget, for like anything too crazy, just intentional art is really good too. Circular tokens to clink. Yeah, sometimes, I talk about the tactile in terms of the touch, but also just sometimes the sounds of a really great, asset or token or whatever it might be. I know I've been working on a poker variant, and I don't want all the chips to be poker chips because literally that game would be just a nightmare to pay for, right? But having one really satisfying chip, like there's something about like a true, authentic kind of clay poker chip that just cannot be beat. I don't know. So, something like that. Map building with map pieces appeal. So yeah, what's great about just a gorgeous map builder is that sense of arranging it. Like that's also part of that tactile, is the arrangement and finding a satisfying arrangement of that is, but then also how it looks laid out. I know I love Jamie Stagmeyer's tapestry, not because I'm good at it, but because I'm at the end of it, like I've made these cool little statuesque civilizations. I'm just like proud of this thing. Like, yeah, it came in dead last, but holy crap, look at my civilization. I'm about to launch a freaking rocket into space. I think everything comes back to rockets for me. I guess I've got some unfulfilled astronaut dreams from when I was 6. So yeah, we've got a puzzle-shaped town. Wow, I can't say that. But yes, making that's again, that sense of like the presence of the object visual of it with the tactile is fantastic. Yeah, co-op games. We just had a long discussion about co-op games at lunch too, of good co-op games, bad co-op games. And yeah, when we're talking about idea people love when they do feel that investment into that theme story, and they feel like that. Shared Tableau, love it. With flavor text, yeah. I'm a big flavor text fan. My current prototype, which, if anybody wants to play test tomorrow, just saying. It's all like posts on social media, and I wrote the posts. They're my flavor text. I had a blast writing them. I don't know if anybody will like reading them, but I had a blast writing them, and it adds to the story. So hopefully people will, and great news, if they don't, I can always change those. Doesn't affect the balancing. Win for me, right? So great ideas coming in. Did anybody have just a low-tech idea? I don't mean like it's a dumb idea. I mean like it's just you don't feel like putting in that thing. Yeah, Andrew.
I had a question actually.
Yeah.
Not to derail us into VR, but I haven't done much with VR, but like how in video games, like racing games, when you go off the road, sometimes the controller like vibrates.
Yeah.
It seems like you could use the vibration aspect to give you a tactile sensation for those tactile players, even in a VR game.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The haptic feedback is coming a long way for whether you're talking about VR or console or anything. Definitely the vibrations. They're even finding ways where like just tiny little air jets would give you the sense of like pushback against something in those haptic suits, or give you the fake feeling, or even like give you the sensation of weight or heaviness or heft. So amazing opportunities. Not consumer viable, right? That's my only hang up, is the consumer viability of the things that can provide us. But yes, I think we're coming to a time where it'd be really exciting, and you think about like the mixed reality of like a good tabletop with like a very simple interface and a very simple haptic feedback. But yeah, I can't wait for that day to come. But yeah, we're not quite there right now. Yeah, I love the idea though. Yeah, we could even simulate the feeling of your hat on a head someday. Although not as cool looking as that, but I might look at somebody's avatar in VR and see them in your cool hat, which I think is the dream. I don't know if anybody's done, this is a total derail. Has anybody ever done an immersive VR like at a corporate like consumer base? They have them in the Dells, Wisconsin Dells. I did one, and it was hilarious because you look at everybody and we all look like ripped space marines. And my cousin is like a 5'0" Asian girl, and she looks like this buff space marine, but she's still talking with her voice. And I can see her standing, like we're all on this tiny little like walkway, and it's like the abyss that you'd see like in Star Wars. She's standing in the abyss. We're like, no, Ray. And she's like, what are you talking about? What's the matter? Her little space marine, and okay, I should be falling right now. So yeah, there's those great moments. I don't know, like sometimes the cognitive dissonance of VR could be really entertaining. But anyways. Yeah, I love where it's heading, but yeah, I'm not quite designing in VR yet. Yeah, I love all we got some great stuff coming in here. The take that and sabotage elements, done tastefully and within the game theme can be phenomenal for that. Yeah, thank you for all the ideas. And we'll have some more input spaces for these ideas. So second kind of groups that I wanted to talk about is Bartle's player types. Has anybody heard of the Bartle player types before? Yeah, a couple hands out there. Yeah, this one is I would say more common to the video game and MMO, but I think there's a lot of overlap in terms of board and card games, and you can still be cognizant of these player types. And there is a test, and I'll give you a link to the test if you want to try and see where you fall on the Bartle test as well in just a second here. But basically it breaks down into achievers, explorers, socializers, and killers. And some people call the killers griefers, especially if you're talking with younger folk and you don't want to use the term killers, but griefers. And if you're not familiar with that term, typically, I mainly heard it called griefers in Minecraft, which is someone who intentionally causes something negative to happen to someone else. Maybe they destroy their build in Minecraft, or they intentionally get in their way, or intentionally spill a bucket of lava on them, which is a real thing my students did to each other in our Minecraft summer school class. That's always a hard one. You don't want to have to make that call home to a parent, hey, Billy spilled lava on Joey again. We have a policy about lava in the class, so yeah, it's not a fun phone call. But yeah, if you want to take the test, I do have I made a shortened link to it. So the person who kind of developed kind of these player archetypes in kind of a game world, I just shortened it to bit.ly/Bartle spiel. I don't know. I did my best to keep it short for you. So if you want to try it on your device, you can. It asks you a bunch of situational questions of, if you were in a game, would you be more interested in this or this? This or this? Would you rather probably do this to a person or this? So you can take it. I'll also just kind of tell you a little bit about them, and you can also guesstimate what you think you are. And yes, of course, you are a subset of these. You're not it's not like we're sorting you into Hogwarts house. Oh, you're a killer. You can't be anything else. No talking to people during games, right? So just to give you the sense of what these are. So achievers are completionists, right? They want to be the best score. They want to get all the unlockables. They want to do all the cool stuff. They want to have bragging rights, right? They want to master the game. We've got the explorers, and they just really want to find the nooks and crannies of the game. They want to get out there in the MMOs. They would be going and finding the Easter eggs. They would be, they would be trying to find these unexplored worlds. And they'd be like, oh, have you gotten to this world? Probably not, because I found the secret path to it, right? So that would be one world, is they just really want to know that they have covered every inch of this world and really gotten immersed in it. The socializers, much like our Ps in the IPOT, first P, they are looking for that interactivity. They are looking for that interplay. They're looking at, okay, I do this to this group of people, how do they respond? Or I'm going to get my group of people together. We're going to go out and see how everybody else responds to us doing this. In the board game world, of course, it's how is my interplay affecting how other people play the game? And then, of course, everybody's favorite player, the griefer or the killer. So that is the one who, I love how they put it here. They want to watch the world burn. They want to cause chaos. They are just looking at, if they want to win, they want to make sure that they've vanquished their foes in such an embarrassing way that it's hilarious to maybe just them. They are just looking for all those little buttons to press to make it harder. Maybe they don't even want to win. They just want to make sure everybody loses. That might be their focus. Now, in kind of the study of this, they have found that the majority of us probably fall into that socializer, but we do have these subsets of achievers and explorers. So that's also important to keep in mind when you're designing. It doesn't mean design for each of these four equally, but just know these are some of the motivations, and how do you incentivize, motivate, or disincentivize those attitudes, or give people a taste of that. You might just want to have a taste of the killer, but not have the killer aspect of your game be too overwhelming, because that's not a huge subset of players, right? They say 1% or under might be dominant killer. We might all have a little bit of that, killer inside of us. This is going in a weird direction. I hear it, right? Sounds like every Netflix special in the last 4 months. But, that we all have that aspect maybe, but that's not a dominant focus for us when we play games, And I definitely can relate to teenage me, who did more of the griefer aspect when I was playing games, but now, current me is more of the socializer, right? Socializer, explorer are my two dominant. So you can take that test. You can also kind of internalize a little bit of maybe where you kind of see yourself falling. I'll just give you a little bit more examples of what these might look like, show them in games, things of that nature. So again, Achievers are desiring to find the best ways to win and maximize their score or accolades. A good example of this, some of these game examples are ones I've been playing recently. And actually somebody gave a really good example of kind of a similar gameplay to Tiny Towns, making a little town by arranging kind of tiles. That's kind of the premise of Tiny Towns. I have a feeling whoever submitted that, your game is cooler though. I'm just gonna say it. So in this one, this definitely is the achiever in me. I definitely in this game am trying to maximize my score. I'm trying to find the angle and the way to do this. I'm trying to maximize, you each get a unique kind of card that you can use that's unique to your town. I wanna maximize that one. I feel that push when I'm playing Tiny Towns. Having said that, I always lose Tiny Towns. So the achiever in me definitely is incentivized by the point scoring mechanisms of arranging my town in a way that scores me the most points. Whether I'm successful at that is another story. But my sister-in-law is very achiever, and she loves this game, and she does seem to do very well because she seems to, she's the one who she's kind of like that one character in The Hangover where all the numbers appear around her head, and she's figuring out the optimum route, and she's already known like what is gonna get the best return on her investment with how she lays out her town, and that's not me. So this definitely appeals to her achiever mind of developing those structures in a certain way. In Game Stormers, we look to do it with maximizing your point output through your abilities on your card and the card values. Cards that are harder to typically work into your story will be worth more. And then meeting the requirements are gonna make it harder to maybe tell a cohesive story depending on how you combo cards. So we're incentivizing you to get really creative. It'll score you more points, but holy cow, are you gonna have to really stretch your mind to be able to do your game pitch, right? So the achievers typically look at that score in the corner, whereas I believe the socializers, explorers, maybe look a little bit more at what that card actually is. They take a little bit longer look at the visual, at the idea of the card in the bigger story, would be kind of my comparison of those two. There we go, we're back. Socializers, again, we mentioned these are the people, right? They're the people about the people, for the people, interacting with the people. And so again, they might be more about that story that's emerging. They might be more about the discussions that are happening. You see a lot of overlaps with those two kind of archetypes. Where we see these people coming in, somebody like a socializer would be drawn to a game like Just One. Any Just Oneers out there? Anybody played Just One by chance? Great game, like co-op family game. Basically, you can give one-word clues to the guesser to help them guess the word. So person has one word to guess, you give them one-word clues. The only catch, repeat clues, gone. They don't get to see those clues. So, you've got this example here. If you're trying to get them to guess chocolate and you have milk, white, Belgian, dark, hazelnut, sweet, if, two people put milk, they don't see milk at all, right? That would be how kind of that one works. So they would lose that. Hopefully they'd be able to get it from white, Belgian, dark, hazelnut, sweet. I would hope they would. That's a pretty darn good list of clues right there. Or you could be like us, the word will be Sherlock, and all three of us write, Watson, and they get nothing. We're just like, just guess a word. Guess any word. The entire English language. I don't know. I think you're going to get it. And they're like, popsicles? Nope, it was Sherlock. What were you thinking? Yeah. So that's also a hilarious event that can result of that. But that's a great game for socializers. And so in Game Stormers, we're all about that pitch, right? We're all about the how do you sell this and how do you connect with people. Sometimes it's not even so much your game, but you might be playing the other players. What would the majority of these players really love to hear a game about, right? My nephew won the other day. He created a game called Dragons. It was a dragon heist game. He had found 3 different cards related to dragons. They were going on a heist, and then he had drawn a Blue Moon ice cream. And so at the end of the heist, they actually ditch out and go and eat Blue Moon ice cream. He won in a landslide. Like, everybody's like, I will pre-order this game right now, And he played his audience. He had his sister, loves Blue Moon ice cream. He had me, who loves dragons. He had his father, who's like, looks bad if I don't vote for him, right? So he had played the audience perfectly there with Dragons, the Blue Moon ice cream eating dragon heist game, which honestly, he hasn't claimed. So if any of you want to try to make that game, it is there, and that is an untapped market. So I'm just saying. What's that? Good domain name. Right? Dragons.com. Yeah, I agree. I think somebody took it. You have to put a Z on the last dragons if you want to get it. So, yeah. We mentioned the explorers. Sometimes this is a little bit of an abstract one to think about in the board and card game context, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense. One thing I hear specifically about kind of that discovering the secrets and exploring the game, one thing that happens, you know what's happening? I think it's losing it. I'm like staticked up, and when I touch it, like the static seems to make it go dark. That's really weird. I don't know. But one thing that I kind of hear is, you know, a lot of explorers love the aspect of understanding like all the little card opportunities, all the little worlds, all the little ways you can win. Because sometimes when you play a game, have you ever felt that sense of like, I saw a fourth of the game, and there's this whole unexplored aspect of the game, and maybe I want to play again, not because I like am good at it, like I think I'm a pretty bad game player, but I actually just want to know what I didn't get to experience. You know, I got invested in the game, and I actually just want to know the unknown. That, I think, is part of this explorer mindset. I feel that way when I play Betrayal. Oh my gosh, I played one scenario, there's 50 more. Now, like in the Legacy, there's like, I don't know, a jillion. I don't know how many are in the Legacy, but I want to know all those scenarios. Yeah, maybe it feels sometimes like a slog, you know, we're fighting through this haunted house, but I want to know what else could happen to me. I want to know how many times, you know, a creepy child can drown me or something, you know, the usual. That's, you know, a scenario in the game. So, you know, I want to know those things. And how do you build in the unknown in your game that gets people wanting to come back and just find out about it, you know, win or lose? Okay, I'm going to try to ground myself before I touch. I think that worked that time. I think I am just staticked up, folks. Then in our game, really what I hear about is people want to know what other kind of cards they could have found to make their game. You know, they found and made a way to make their game work with the kind of, we were talking at lunch called a creative constraint, the constraint of the cards they were able to acquire to make their game, but now they're like, what else could there have been out there? Or what else could I have made myself with kind of those dice? So there is that unknown of, I know there's a ton of cards out there to make them, but what are those? I'm intrigued to play again to see what else I can make and push myself to try to make a new design. So that's how we try to reach out to the explorers. And then we got killers, checking my time. We've got the killers, yep, got the classic Darth Vader reference here. Again, just a reminder, they're crushing competition. It could be embarrassing, it could be cruel, it could be just mayhem. Like they might make a decision that is totally bonkers. I've had this, and sometimes it can make the experience. Like I've had a kid just decide to kick me out of a room in 2 Rooms in the Boom right at the last minute, and I caused my team to lose. Like he's like, hey, get out of here, you're over in the other room, that's my ability. I'm like, we have 1 second left and you just killed the president. Are you proud of yourself? He's like, yeah, I kind of am. I'm like, he was on your team. That's fine. Yeah, this is a dark ending here, folks. You know, he'll do that. Or my friend, we were right about to win Dead of Winter, one of my favorite games. And right as we're about to win, he goes, oh, I'm this pirate guy. I can take like one of your cards. And he took my card. It's like my first time I was ever going to win the game. Took the card I needed to win. I'm like, we had the W. He's like, yeah, I got 1 extra action. Just give me a card. I'm like, I needed that gasoline. You didn't need that gasoline. You know, but it was totally him just being like, wouldn't this be hilarious if I just like, we could have won together or now just I win? Like that's a killer. That's a total killer. And they're everywhere. Yeah, we patched it up. I actually now can see the hilarity like years removed from that traumatic experience. But yeah. Still have never won Dead of Winter. I played it so many times, and that was the closest time I've ever come. So, but what a mark of a good game if you keep playing it because you know, even though you've never won, or maybe it's just a balancing issue, or it's a me problem. I've never looked inward at how bad I am at the game. And then, you know, just another great example. This is so popular, and I have just on my in-law side, I have so many non-gamers. But this game they love because I think secretly my in-laws are all killer types. I think truly, like this game is such a hit because this, if you haven't played Bang the Dice game, it's an elimination game. Secret rolls, roll dice. You can heal people with beer naturally. You can shoot people with guns. And you try to deduce who's on your team and who's not, right? They love this game because it is all about like, they will throw out strategy and just be like, you made me really upset at dinner, like shooting you. And I'm like, they are clearly on your team. They're healing you. He's like, doesn't matter. Words were said, right? You know, so they love this game, but that game allows that mayhem, right? And it feeds to those killer types, those griefer types that are in the game. So, you know, games can appeal to those types, but also reward the other types too, right? Even though those killers and griefers might be the minority of kind of the dominant types, some games really thrive on those folks. And if the socializers can get over the hump of that the killers might just totally ruin their experience, it can be really fun too, especially if you just whisper it's just a game to yourself, which I sometimes have to do, right? In Game Stormers, I think one thing you have to be really good about too with these player types is you have to ask yourself what player type just isn't really a good type to cater to in your game. And Game Stormers just is not a good game to cater to those killers and griefers. Number one, because I am catering to a K-12 market. I'm looking at this to be maybe a family gateway game into kind of the board game field. And so it's not a good sign if there are ways for you just to torpedo other people's strategies. And I learned this early on in playtesting. I was playtesting, and my poor wife, it was mid-pandemic, when I really was playtesting the early versions. We had killer-type card abilities where you could go in and destroy something from somebody's player board. They were making their great game. They're like, they got it, unified. They're one more card away from making the game they're really proud of, and then you destroy one of their cards. And that really isn't the spirit of the game. The game is about anybody feeling like a designer. So if you're this close to feeling like you've made a cohesive game and somebody destroys that, that is totally antithesis to the game experience that we're going for. So don't be married to, I have to design for all of these. But if you can give them a bone, like a great example of this is my brother, when he's playing me in Game Stormers, there's an item market, public item market, anybody can take a card. He'll look at what I'm maybe going for a world, and he'll say, well, I'm going to take the most valuable card out of the fantasy realm, just so I know you can't get it, score more points, or make a cohesive. That's the closest he can get. Now, I could probably work around that, maybe make my own card, maybe I could fill in the gaps with a different card, maybe I could try to vary my multi-world story, but that's the closest we really come to griefing. It's not, I've destroyed a key part of your already created story, it's, I maybe closed a door for you, and now you need to get creative with where you're going to fill in from there. So I'm giving the griefers a little bone, but I'm not designing this experience for them because this game truly isn't for the griefers. So that's something I think you really need to understand is it's not a, hey, equal opportunity, killing, socializing, everything. It's a, what is the experience that you want? That's really, really key to designing for players is understanding what's not going to compromise your vision for the experience that they're going to have. Two last just pieces. These are outside of the IPOT and the Bartle player types. I think it's also really important to design for player needs, and that's knowing your target audience. I talked a lot more about target audience in the first talk when thinking about marketing, but knowing who your players are and thinking about what might be challenges that they experience. And there are some challenges that everybody is going to have in the board game space, like color blindness for players is something you just want to be designing for no matter what. You want to be running your games through colorblind filters and thinking about player challenges to playing your game. And so thinking about what you can do. We tried to mitigate this with some good descriptors. Our game is color-coded by world, but it's also clearly labeled. There's an iconography for the type of card. We tell you the type, we write the type. There's a color coding and an iconography. So we try to give you clues where the colorblindness does not limit your ability to play. When you're designing your own card, it's a black and white experience. It's a black and white dice. We didn't color code the dice for the worlds. Those icons should be very easy to utilize when you utilize them. We tried to have our visuals really tell the story too. That was why visuals were so important to us. The story I love to tell with the visuals helping struggling readers is I had a 7-year-old playing this game, a good family friend. Actually, the daughter of my friend who stole my card in Dead of Winter. I'm cool with his daughter. He's dead to me. But she was playing the game, and she gets a chariot. And she's 7. She doesn't know what a chariot is, but she looks, and she goes, oh, cool, I got a fancy wagon. And now a fancy wagon is an item in her game. And she made it work, right? So where we see chariot, she saw fancy, pretty wagon, and her game utilized that in a really clever way. And that's great. You want to think about how your game allows for people to engage with it if they can't understand every single thing. Is the iconography really good? Does it have those visuals that tell the story for the card name? How can you make that a little bit better? I think our game admittedly has too much text in some of the cards, and I think I could have done a better job doing more iconography, to be honest with it. So another thing that I included in the game too is this game can be played as more of a simplified party game as a variant, or the full-blown game with turns, with different action types. So if you just want kids getting up and going playing it, it has kind of an apples to apples or it's inappropriate older brother, Cards Against Humanity mini game to it that you can play with a judge role and people kind of quick pitching and quick creating, or you can do the full game. So we're also trying to say, hey, if you don't have time or you don't have the expertise to go into all these mechanics, we've got a simplified mode for you that gets to the same heart of the game, which is become a designer. I think that's important to do too. If you are going to create alternate modes, make sure they still speak to the main tenets and goals of the game. And then I think the other thing too, I mentioned this, is designing for your end users. You should really have that ideal person in mind and then really make sure that the game's core tenets align with that. So I wanted this game to be understandable and appealing to that family's, teachers, and students demographic that I really have for the game. And one design constraint I had is typically a standard kind of middle school, high school class can max out at 50 minutes, sometimes even shorter. And so I wanted an experience that would fit in that time frame if this was used in a classroom. And also family game night, you don't want like a 2-hour epic, for playing those family game nights. They want something that plays a little quicker. So this game has a shorter game mode, or the full game mode would fit into a 50-minute class if needed. So that was another design constraint is, okay, these are my people, that might be into this kind of game that has some educational and family and kind of budding game designer, kind of overlap. What does that mean? That meant I had to really be intentional about making this a crisp and quick game experience for them. So that was just thinking about end users and thinking about what experience was going to work for them. So I do have 2 questions for you. Number one, I'm just curious, what kind of crowd do we have out here? I'm going to open up this one, this next question. I'll activate that. If it's going to switch. Hold on a second. So I am curious. I'm going to activate this one. What kind of crowd do we have today? This is saying, what is your main type? So if you go to that polev.com/COEPS, what would you say is your dominant type? I totally get that you have aspects of this, but what are we seeing? Just curious what we have, and then we'll talk a little bit about ways you maybe think we can, also think about those Bartle types very, very strategically. What would you call yourself? I'm socializer dominant myself. Second for me is explorer, little achiever, I think I have like a split achiever killer, griefer kind of myself. Wow, big explorer crowd. Or somebody's just stuffing the explorer ballot box. We found, 30,000 explorer votes in Arizona, actually. That's too soon. That's too soon. No. This is a very secure process. It's a URL. You definitely can't open it up in another browser. Yeah. Wow, look at this. This is interesting. Either the explorers are really excited to explore a new website to submit their answer, or like we just have a lot of explorers. But I think if you think about this, game designers are world builders, and I think that does lend itself to this explorer attitude. So this isn't terribly shocking to me. I know the achievers are mad they didn't win. I get that. Like, oh God, I want to be the best. Oh, here we come. Okay, they're making a late push. And the socializer's like, I just want to talk about these results. Like, isn't this crazy? What do you think? And the killer's like, I hate this. I'm gonna put in my own answers or something. The killer's already left. They're like, this guy's too happy-go-lucky. I'm out of here. So let's take a look. The last question is a chance for you to also kind of put in your thoughts and your ideas. I know I don't want to switch away from it to see if the achievers, emerge victorious. But just, kind of a last brainstorm opportunity in our last few minutes here. What are some ways maybe that your game appeals to one of these subsets or 2 of them, the player types? Maybe what are some ways you could see it possibly reaching out and connecting to these player types? And then also, of course, if we got any folks who want to do the no-tech option with the old raising the hand, I know we got about 10. I'm sure the next presenter would not, hate me if I donated some time back either, but I do want to give you a chance to put this in here. And I, of course, will do my classic running commentary of this coming in. Multiple ways to score is great. My game, I don't know. Early on, it's gotten good feedback about, hey, I love that there's a creative outlet and there's a points-based kind of more concrete and abstract way to win, because some people hate voting winning, some people hate points winning. So we're trying to straddle that line. Stay tuned if there's the critical mass of people agree with us. But multiple ways to do that really opens avenues for those different people. You might be incentivized to explore. You might be incentivized to just find that engine that scores you a lot of points. But maybe the explorers, found a kind of a route that allows them to kind of supersede that. You can just develop scoring mechanisms that incentivize these different players, right? So that's great. Take that is totally a killer thing. Take that mechanics, if you're not familiar, is it's just like it sounds, right? You are saying, hey, I know you thought you were doing that, but actually I'm doing this, and it's totally negating that strategy, right? Great for those killers, not so great for those folks who if you didn't select me, I had this thing figured out, right? So it doesn't have that reservation for that, but if it fits your game, not a problem, right? As long as the people going in understand, there is a take that, it's gonna be great for killers. Maybe you achievers are gonna have a tough time coming to grips with that, right? That's something to think about. Making friends with all the bunnies, yes, yeah. If your game is all about maximizing, the bunny points or the bunny system, achievers would love that, right? Map creating and discovering the world, yes, absolutely. That is something, I think not only, what's great is these overlap, right? So you can have those people who are the socializers and the explorers who really celebrate that, because that is just another opportunity for them to maybe engage in some more player interaction. As player cards are named and explore as you explore the areas, yeah, absolutely. The quest for the perfect word square, yes, absolutely. I think that's one thing that's really cool. I love games like Hanabi. If you've never played Hanabi, it's a cooperative, your hands are backwards, so you know what everybody else has but you, and you're trying to help each other score the highest. What's really great is my family, we've never scored perfectly in Hanabi. We've gotten so close so many times, but that chase that achiever does come out in me. I usually just like it for the talk, but we've got some achievers in our family who have been let's fire it up again. Let's fire it up again. We're getting a perfect. I'm we're never getting a perfect, but they're convinced we are. And so Hanabi is yes, it's possible, but holy cow, is it hard. That is such a clever, way to do that. I know, and I think Art, you touched upon this about the high score scoring and the single player variance being sometimes not a great one, but holy cow, for the achievers, it's so motivating. I'm not a huge fan into it, but I do feel a little bit of that pressure to get the perfect score. So it can be very, very motivating. Gentle competition. You can have this really cool positive player interactivity, that can help. So you're actually, kind of nudging people along with your moves that benefit other people's moves is a really interesting thing. We got more bunnies. I love it. Yeah. What if you're friends with the bunnies, right? Take that, but there's ways to mitigate the take that. I think that's really cool when you actually are revising your strategy based on what you know about the people who are playing the game with you. You're I need to have some more defenses ready because this is totally a person who doesn't care if they win, but they more care about the chaos. If you are thinking about that and it influences your play, aren't you giving a little bit of incentivization to some of those other types beyond just the killers? You're rewarding them for being ready for that, if anything, and you're rewarding them for understanding who they're playing. Co-op scoring, absolutely. Great way to incentivize the those socializers and even, I guess you could argue, the achievers too. And a lot of ways to create layouts with resources. There is a winner for most valuable layout, and you can sabotage each other. Yeah, look at that. We got a 4 for 4. Give it up for that random person, right? Yay. I think, this is always a good goal. There are tons of sites out there that let you kind of run your assets and icons through a filter if you are interested in kind of checking against color blindness. I'm figuring which tool I use, but tried to make ones that were accessible for folks who have different color blindness challenges. And the best thing you can have, this sounds really bad, is a colorblind friend. I actually have I have a friend who's a game player just down the road from me. And so I'm kind of always early on in the assets development, I'm hey, I want to come over and play. He's do you want to see if it's colorblind friendly? I'm no, I just want to see you. No, that's not what he says. That's totally a lie. That would be terrible if I only invite him to try out color. No, I truly like playing games with him, but I will ask him, I'm how am I doing? He'll be not great, Why do you think I was asking you so many questions? Because I did not design it intentionally, right? That was on me. I want to make sure, we got 5 more minutes too. Just wanted to see, did anybody have a no-tech response they wanted to throw out there as well? Or also questions too. I guess I didn't open this up for questions. Questions or just low-tech, no-tech suggestions? That was a pensive, maybe? Yeah.
I don't want to jump in front of anyone without a tech answer. So, do you know of any resources or frameworks that talk about types of players for cooperative games? There's like alpha players, and there's like the analysis paralysis
Yeah.
person, and there's the like I'm just moving person. I don't know if there's a something I could go.
Yeah, I bet, and honestly, I will open this up to the floor. I think I've seen some blogs where people talk about kind of those co-op tropes. I didn't because, it's a gaming subset, but I definitely see it. And that's one reason I was talking at lunch. One reason I love Dead of Winter is because it kills the like armchair quarterback, like I'm going to dictate how people act. I love that. Well, you can't really do that because you don't know what motivations we have. And I've definitely, I've been facilitating the I'm just here for the chips, tell me what to do kind of thing. But yeah, I don't have those laid out. Does anybody have any resources where they've seen kind of the co-op, like any co-op, like kind of archetypes? Yeah, have you found one? Do you recall?
It's not co-op specific. I mean, it's sort of, there's another kind of taxonomy of player breakouts called 8 types of fun.
Yeah.
8 types of fun. It's like the ones you had, but it's twice as big.
Yeah, absolutely. Ouch! I'll just go behind my. I'm just kidding.
But if you think about it as like every player is gonna like have different weighting for each of those types of fun. You can do something comparable for co-op stuff. It's tricky because co-op games are really, really hard to make.
That's accurate.
So I mean, I don't know. It's you can have player taxonomies, but it doesn't help you if like 3 alpha players show up to a game and are all trying to like override each other.
Yeah. If anything, I think the best thing you can do in the co-op world is really try to incentivize the keeping some players having their own individual motivations that don't lend themselves to just, hey, here's my hand, help me. Anything you can do. What's that?
Or just don't play with those people.
Or don't play with those people. Yeah. What if you live with one of them? So that's a great question. I haven't really. I always forget if it's dived or dove into those, but yeah, the 8 different types of fun. Is also just a fantastic direction to go to inform your play because if you can find an into finding what is fun for people is absolutely key. So, questions or comments? Yeah.
It was it's a comment for the design for player needs, specifically for making digital versions of your game.
Yeah.
Because I personally have astigmatism, so I can't do stuff in 3D space as well without like getting a headache from hell.
Yeah.
And so just having that in mind for porting into digital space, that there are people that can't do that and work better in 2D digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think, is Screen Top 2D? Screen Top GG?
Not familiar.
Yeah.
I use Board Game Arena.
Oh, yeah, BGA. Yep, yeah.
2D space.
Yes, yeah, that's a great point. I think it is, depending on where your people are going to be. I use Tabletopia. I told the first group because most of my folks are web-based. They don't have tabletop simulators, so Tabletopia is free and web-based. It is 3D though, and it will get you nauseous. Yeah, Tabletopia will, absolutely be terrible. My wife has an astigmatism too, and she's just like, get that away from me. But yeah, there are some great other platforms that are that 2D interface. Obviously, there are some limitations just because of how your game mechanism might work that don't translate, but if your game does translate to those, that is a really good point to do it. Or how can you make that work, or can you at least give them that experience, a comparable experience? Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Any other comments, questions?
Something really stupid. I have minor astigmatism, and I just realized that was the connection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. I like it. We're also having just ahas of like, well, why has that been messing with my head? Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
This app is awesome, by the way. I feel like the engagement is like way more than normal, and you as a speaker can like rip through all the stuff people have read, and you don't have to wait for people to like, communicate their questions and their points. Like you're limiting. Like it's a lot faster transition when you go through all these points. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. You can gamify this too. There's one like Q&A type question where you can have people upvote or downvote. And so I have turned it into a game like, hey, submit like a creative response, and then whatever gets the upvotes, we all, cheer on and give a thing. But then you always get, when I do it with teenagers or I do it with like my college kids, there's always people downvoting like random things just to be funny. So there's also that piece to it too. So you just got to know your audience. But there's a poll everywhere. I think it's free up to 25 people. We have a university account to it, but there's tons of other tools that do similar. But yeah, I really do recommend it when you're just trying to gauge quick audience responses, as long as you don't forget to re-up with the public Wi-Fi. So. Thank you everybody. I'll be here for another hour probably as well, and then I'm here tomorrow if you just want to touch base and chat about any of these topics, or if you didn't catch my marketing one, I'd be happy to get you hooked up with that too. So thank you.
Is this always your link for these polls?
Yes, that is always my link.
So the killer in the room.
Yes.
Spam you and keep
I mean, it's not the link. Don't go back to it ever again. Killer spotted. Thanks everybody, and have a good rest of your proto spiel.